Alright, I have a little business I have to attend to before I get going. Craig Crawford, are you here somewhere? I'm holding you to this. Craig Crawford, and you have to forgive me, Tika, said that he would write a check for $1,000 if I announced that Tika and Linda will be married on July 15th in Vancouver. I think it's been months now, many months probably, since Linda Stay wrote me and said, hey, Lance, would you come and speak in St. George in May? And, oh boy, May. You know, I knew that May was going to be tough because I have, at this point, 4.5 movies about to go into production, and I don't think I hesitated long before I said, heck yeah, I'll be right there. And I got on the plane and I came out and I actually had to come out here and finish my script for J.J. Abrams at the Hilton, right? Isn't that where I'm saying? The Hilton right next door last night, and delivered it from there. And I'll tell you why I came. I came because there's something that I desperately need from you guys. There's something I need you to do for us and for me. And it's rather selfish, actually. And it has a little something to do with this word called leadership. And it's got me thinking a good bit about leadership, and if you've got some patience, I'd love to tell you just a few stories tonight. Starting with a few stories about this idea of leadership and what the heck that is. You know, I know sometimes some people will say, hey Lance, you've become this leader in this movement, and I look at them funny. My mom looks at them very strangely and says, that kid? The one who wouldn't get up in front of anyone, who sweats when he talks and has the kind of squeaky voice, and she will tell you immediately the story of the first time I think I met a leader, and that was when she dropped me off for school in kindergarten. And I remember walking into the classroom. I was very quiet. I didn't really talk to people. I wouldn't wear anything that was too colorful. And I walked in, and all these kids were coloring within the lines. And I saw them all, and I set in on a panic attack. And I was immediately shipped off to the principal's office. And that is where I spent the first 2 years of my schooling, was with that principal, Miss Tipton. That's right, Miss Tipton. Miss Tipton, this was out in San Antonio, Texas, right? So really what she did as principal was her walkie-talkie would start to squawk. And we'd both get up, and we'd start marching out the door, and she'd grab her paddle with the holes drilled in it on her way out, and we'd go from classroom to classroom all day long with a screaming child would come out, the screaming child would bend over, and her screaming paddle with the holes would come down and smack the kid in the butt. And I thought, boy, that is what a leader is, isn't it? Right? She had big Texas hair, and she didn't take lip from anybody. And she ruled by fear. And I thought, boy, you know, I don't have it in me to ever be anything like Miss Tipton. And I knew that. And at that same time, right around 6 years old, we were in church. Now, I grew up Mormon. I grew up Mormon out in San Antonio, Texas, and in the military. So that meant on very special Sundays, they would beam in via satellite, which was new technology at the time, very exciting for me as a 6-year-old kid, the prophet of the Mormon church. And we would hear him speak. And at the time, it was this guy who I really looked up to, and literally was looking up to with this video screen with this white hair. His name was Spencer W. Kimball. And I just remember at 6 years old looking up to him and him saying these words. Homosexuality is sin. Next to the crime of murder comes the sin of sexual impurity. I just remember going, oh my goodness, really, homosexuality, that's a fantastic word. All those syllables, it has an X in it. This is going to be really good with Scrabble. As a future writer, I was drawn to this word. I just had no clue, absolutely no clue what it meant, right? And then I'm in the military, so I have all these other words that are starting to be stacked on, like pansy and queer and homo, and I didn't know what they meant either. But at one time, I was at church in the Randolph Ward in San Antonio, Texas, and I was around sort of the Relief Society. I'd always sort of drift towards the Relief Society ladies. And one of those words slipped out of my mouth. And you could have heard a pin drop. And they ran over to some priesthood holding guy, and he came over to me, and he explained in detail what homosexual meant. And I thought, fabulous. And then he followed it up, saying, making it very, very clear that if I ever went there, that it was something that I ever did, that I would bring great shame to myself and great shame to my family. And he said that, I would be going to hell, that this was a sin, it was unforgivable. So I already knew at school what a leader was, someone that ruled by fear. And in church, it was someone that said I wasn't good enough to be welcomed by God. And then, at the same time, politically, if you turned on the television, there was a whole other thing going on. Has anyone ever heard of the name Anita Bryant in this room? Oh, yeah. What a charmer, right? Right, really well coiffed, well spoken. And right when I was a kid, right around the same time, she was busy striking down the very few laws protecting gay and lesbian people in this country. And she said this when she struck down the very first one in Miami-Dade County. She said, "Tonight the laws of God and the cultural values of man have been vindicated. The people of Dade County, the normal majority, have said enough, enough, enough." And you know what happened after that? Not just conservatives, not just Republicans, people who called themselves progressive, people on the left, all jumped in with their own anti-gay quotes. They all started attacking because this issue was new. And most importantly, people were showing up to the ballot box to vote for it in droves. So both sides were against me. So I knew politically I was a second-class citizen. I knew in church I was going to hell. And I knew in school to be afraid. And that's what I learned leadership was, right? And it didn't leave me with many choices. As a gay kid in San Antonio, Texas, growing up Mormon in the military, I thought, I've got a couple of options. Option number one, I could just try and hide and not excel, just try and blend in. And for me, that would mean starting a small Mormon family of, say, 10 or 20 kids. And that wasn't really in the cards for me. And the other option was to take my own life. And it's the thing that I know probably many of us, unfortunately, had considered in our adolescence and our youth. And I certainly did. And it's not rare, unfortunately. We do know that LGBT kids are 4 times more likely to attempt suicide than their straight brothers and sisters, and 9 times more likely if they come from unaccepting homes or unaccepting environments. But that's not how my story ends. My mom met a very handsome Army soldier and said to me one day, "Hey, what do you think if I married Jeff and we moved to California?" And I said, "Oh yeah, baby, let's go." And we packed up and we moved to California, and I got to see my mom, I think, truly in love for the very, very first time. And she was happy. And she said, "You know what I got to do? I want to cure my middle son of his shyness problem." And she said, "I know how I'll do it. I'm gonna put him into drama club, right? Won't that help, drama club?" Now, I don't know what she thought drama club was all about, but it wasn't the most butch club on campus, and I liked it. I liked it a whole heck of a lot. And it didn't take me very long to move from drama club to community theater. And before I knew it, I was up in San Francisco working in the theaters. And there was this apprenticeship group forming. And I don't know who said what in that apprenticeship group, but the guy who led it, he pulled us aside one day. He said, "I want to play you something. I want to tell you a story and play you something." And maybe he saw that some of us needed to hear this message. But he played us a tape. And it had been delivered over 10 years earlier, on June 9th, 1978. And it was a speech that was given in my hometown of San Antonio, Texas. So I'll read it to you now. It went like this. Somewhere in Des Moines or San Antonio, there was a young gay person who all of a sudden realizes that she or he is gay, knows that if the parent finds out, they'll be tossed out of the house, the classmates will taunt the child, and the Anita Bryants and John Briggs are doing their bit on TV, and that child has several options: staying in the closet or suicide. And then one day that child might open up the papers and it says, "Homosexual elected in San Francisco." And there are 2 new options. One option is to go to California or to stay in San Antonio and fight. You've got to elect gay people so that young child and the thousands upon thousands like that child know there is hope for a better world. There is hope for a better tomorrow. And I heard those words. I was almost 14 years old. And that was Harvey Bernard Milk. And he gave me hope. He gave me hope. He wasn't leading with fear or intimidation or threats of going to hell. He was leading with hope, and for the very first time, his brand of hope actually included me, and it saved my life. And it didn't just save my life. I actually started to have a pretty good time in life. And I said, I don't want to blend in anymore. I want to stick out. I want to do some things. And I didn't come out to everyone right away, but I did go to UCLA, and I did go to film school. I did discover this place called West Hollywood. And I started going on little dates here and there, and then all of a sudden I met this guy. He was an older guy. He was a 22-year-old grad student, and I thought he was just the bee's knees. And he would not give me the time of day, and it's all I wanted was to go on a date with him. And I was thinking about it so much. In fact, thinking about it so much that I was thinking about it on the plane ride home my senior year of college still. And I realized I'm not out to my family. And I'm flying from LA, and now they're in DC, and I'm going, what am I going to talk about at Christmas? Because this is Christmas break now. What am I going to talk about? Because we always talk a lot in our family, and I'm trying to think, am I going to lie? Am I going to make something up? And instead, you know, I didn't even come up with anything before the plane landed, and I see my stepdad there, and he picks me up, and he puts me in the car, and we drive through the woods to Northern Virginia, where my family is now living. And I see my mom there. She's got her arms open wide, and I go up and give her a hug. And I wonder, boy, I don't know if my mom would do this if she really knew who I truly am. And even tougher still, right next to her is my big brother. Now, my big brother is a tough guy. You know, I mean, we were very, very different. He loved watching cars go around in circles repetitively. He liked shooting things for fun. He made endless fun of my New Kids on the Block poster and my NSYNC poster, and I even put up a Apollo Duel poster at one point, and that didn't work for him either. And you know, we were just sort of like oil and water, me and my big brother, and just growing apart. And I just thought, boy, I wonder if my family will ever love me for me. And I raced through Christmas morning, and we opened all the presents, and I remember then I raced through dinner as fast as I could, and I said, boy, I am exhausted, I gotta go to sleep. And I went upstairs to my room, and I closed the door, and I thought, boy, I did it. I didn't have to say anything. You know, and then the sound came. This click-clack sound. This click-clack, 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 coming down the hallway. I've heard this sound my entire life. It's my mom on her braces and her crutches. She had polio when she was a kid. She's coming down the hallway, and she opens the door, and she comes and sits on the corner of the bed. Now, this is not unusual. This is what we had always done. We would stay up all night talking about everything, any subject. I just didn't feel comfortable talking about anything, and so I let her set the agenda. And at the time, there was this thing in the news called Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Now, my mom was really upset about it. She wasn't upset about it because it was excluding people. She was upset about it because all of a sudden, if they just stayed quiet, these gays and lesbians could join up in her military. And how dare they let these people who are sinners into her military, these broken people. And as she starts to talk about this more and more passionately, I start to feel my face turn red. And I start to feel wetness form in my eyes, water forming in my eyes, and I start to pray, and I say, please, God, please don't let these tears run down my cheeks. I don't want to come out. I'm not ready to come out yet, but they came, and they fell down my cheeks. And I remember looking up into my mother's eyes, and I could see in them such pain, because she knew. She's a mom, she knew. But in her eyes was devastation. She thought, you know, how could I have broken my precious boy? What did I do wrong? How did I damage him? How can I ever possibly fix this problem? And we didn't solve it on that trip. You know, I flew back home to LA, and I saw my friends, and my friends could tell something was wrong, but I didn't really want to talk about it. I wasn't ready to. And they said, well, what's the problem? I said, oh, you know, I don't know, I'm sort of worried, you know, it's graduation soon, and my whole family's coming out. And they said, oh, what's the big deal? We'll just make some, you know, salad, we'll make some pasta. No problem. I said, oh, okay. And that day came soon, really soon, much sooner than I thought. And I remember hearing that sound again, that click-clack sound coming down the hallway, click-clack, click-clack. And I opened the door, and there was my beautiful mom and all my friends inside. And I gotta be honest with you, I completely copped out. I did not tell my mom that most of my friends now were gay and lesbian, and I certainly didn't tell any of my friends that my mom had any problem with her gay son. And so she comes in and sits down. They start serving her salad and pasta, right? And I start to quickly realize that because I've said nothing, all my friends assume that my mom loves gay and lesbian people. Right? And this is like before Ellen, this is before Will and Grace, so she's a goddamn saint. Right? So they all start coming up to her one by one and sitting down next to her and telling her their story, right? Their story of being rejected by their parents, not able to come home. Their story of falling in love for the first time, of coming out, and they get so comfortable with her because she's such a warm person. They start talking about their dating life and their sex life. And I'm backing further and further into the kitchen at this point, horrified, afraid, and they're leaving one by one, and before I know it, there's my mom. All by herself, just me and her. And I'll never forget her patting the chair right next to her and saying, "Come here, sit down, we need to talk." I said, "Okay." And she said, "Well, I met your friends." I said, "Good." She said, I liked them." I said, "Good, I'm glad." She said, "Well, and I met that 22-year-old grad student." I said, "All right, I like him too." And she says, "Yeah, well, I told him that he better start treating you better, and the next time he takes you to dinner, he ought to pay." And my mom, my Mormon mom, wrapped her arms around me and held me, and I lit up inside a way I have never lit up in my entire life. She gave me hope again. My mom gave me strength. I cannot tell you the liberation that I felt, the hope that I felt, the acceptance that I felt, and it had all happened in one night. In one night, because she had heard stories of actual gay and lesbian people. In one night, those actual stories had dispelled all the myths and the lies and the stereotypes that my own mother had heard for generations. That she'd heard at church, that she'd heard in the military, she'd heard growing up in the South. They were gone, and she was just holding me. And I thought, my God, if that is the power of our personal stories, that's what I'm going to do with my life. So I graduated from college, and all of a sudden, if I was lucky enough to get a reality show, it was the gay episode. And if there was a TV movie to be done, I did the Pedro Zamora story. And within 10 years, I was getting to tell the story of my great hero, Mr. Coming Out Harvey Milk. And I was so proud of myself. I remember being so proud of myself up there that I actually got this done, because it was a challenging film to get made. But we got it done, and we were up there, and now it was time to get it done right. And I was working so hard that I was ignoring everybody, all the phone calls, and in particular one phone call. And it was from my big brother. And you know, my big brother would call me an awful lot, but he was, like I said, he was the tough guy in a Mormon family. He was the rule breaker. You know, he drank first and he smoked first, and he would get in trouble in certain ways. And so I was hesitant, but on some Sunday there in the middle of production, I finally called him back, and I could hear that sound in his voice. It was like a sound of desperation, that something was broken. And I said, you know, "Hey, bro, you know, what's wrong? No matter what it is, we can fix it." And he said, Yeah, no, do you remember my friend Larry? I said, "Yeah." "No, I know Larry, sure, he has the front tooth missing, and he likes to watch cars go in circles with you and kill things." He said, "Yeah, Larry." I said, "What's wrong?" And he said, "Well, Larry broke up with me." And I said, "What?" And he said, Larry broke up with me. Like a year or so ago, we were down in the basement, and we were watching a race, and he leaned over, and he kissed me. And nothing's ever felt so right in my entire life. And we fell in love. And I've had the best year of my life, but now Larry is afraid. And Larry says it has to end. And I'm devastated. And I said, "Oh boy, all right, well, did you ever call the right guy for this?" right? So I immediately pulled out every single hope speech that I have, right? Every It Gets Better speech, and I start reciting them and giving them and giving them. And there is nothing I can do, though, to help him have that sense of liberation or that sense of hope that I had. Nothing I could say. And all of a sudden I realized how foolish I had been, how self-centered I had been. Of course, I felt liberated when I came out, because I came out in California, where you can't lose your job and you can't lose your home if you come out. So people are coming out in California, and they're dispelling the myths and the lies and the stereotypes. Our family is from Utah. I grew up in Texas, and he was living in Virginia, where he could lose his job, he could lose his home, and him and Larry had every reason to be afraid. And so I said, I have to dream bigger now than just a movie. And I got the great honor of getting up on that Oscar stage just a few months later, and I got up there, and I promised the young people across the country full and equal rights federally across this great nation of ours. Now, that's all well and good, but how do you do that? And I started talking about it at dinners, and in fact, at this one big rally in front of the Capitol where about 250,000 people came and saw me and Cleve Jones and Lady Gaga speak, and we talked about full federal equality in all 435 congressional districts, including the congressional districts here in Utah. And you know who I got heat from? Not from any conservatives, not from the religious right. I started getting heat from people in the LGBT movement who said, quiet down, settle down, it's too soon to go federal. It's too soon to think of everyone, I asked. And I got lucky because as an Oscar winner, you sort of get a few privileges, one of which is you get a chance to make some phone calls and meet some of your heroes. Has anyone ever heard of Julian Bond? Julian Bond was one of the great leaders of the Black Civil Rights Movement and headed up the NAACP. And I sat with him and I told him this story, and I said, we want to do this thing. We want to sue the state of California in federal court. But I'm getting a lot of heat from my own people. And he said, Lance, good things do not come to those who wait. They come to those who agitate. And I said, all right. So together with Chad Griffin, who now runs HRC, and Rob Reiner, we sued the state of California in federal court, saying that the Constitution should apply to every single person in this country, including right here in Utah. And if you've been paying any attention, we've been winning. We won in California District Court. We won at the Ninth Circuit. And just a few months ago, I walked up the steps of the U.S. Supreme Court to hear our case heard at this nation's highest court. And as I walked out and I walked down the steps, the only thing I wanted to do so badly was to call my big brother and say, listen, bro, we are one step away. We're one step away from my freedom being your freedom, my liberation being yours, my hope is yours. But I couldn't. Because in the 4 years it took, my big brother lost his fight with cancer and he died. And my big brother, like so many across this country, like so many in Utah right now, will never know what it feels like to be a full and equal American. He'll never know. He'll never know what it's like to have full rights, to have a family that's respected and protected. He'll only know a checkerboard nation where some areas are free and some are not free, where some people's marriages, some people's families are valid and protected and some are not. And so why am I here tonight? Why did I get on a plane when I got so much to do? I got on a plane because I want Virginia and Texas and Utah to be free and to be equal. And if that is going to happen, this is where it comes to you. I need you all to lead. If you can hear my voice right now, you are a leader in this movement. And I need you to work hard, to be brave, and to lead. And how do you do that? I'll give you Harvey's plan, and it's simple. Number one, come out. If you're LGBT, come out of the closet. If you are an ally, come out of the closet recognize it as an ally. If you're a friend or a family member, start telling people. Because number 2 is tell your personal story. Hopefully I've demonstrated a little bit tonight that personal stories can be moving and can create change. We've heard so many stories tonight that could create change. Yours is at least that powerful, if not more, especially in your own community. And number 3, when we sued the state of California in federal court, we didn't do it with a bunch of progressive Democrats. We did it with a great big old Republican named Ted Olson. That's right. So number 3, reach out to unexpected allies. Reach across the aisle if you have to. Reach for your friends who go to church from Tuesday to Sunday and ask for their help as well. Come out, tell your story, and to reach out, because that's how change is going to happen. That's how leadership can change this country. Because I want to do a little rewrite right now. I want to take a Harvey speech really quick, the one I already read you. And I want to talk about this time next year. So as a writer, I'm taking some liberties on Harvey. Here I go. Somewhere in Biloxi, or Texarkana, there is a young gay person who all of a sudden realizes that she or he is gay. Knows that if the parent finds out, they'll be tossed out of the house. The classmates will taunt the child, and the Gail Razikas and the LeVar Christensens are doing their bit on TV, and that child has several options: staying in the closet, suicide, and then one day that child might open up his or her favorite website, and it says, "The state of Utah passes non-discrimination for all." And there are 2 new options. One option is to go to Salt Lake City, or to St. George, or to stay in San Antonio and Biloxi and fight the way the people of St. George have been fighting. You've got to elect gay people so that that young child and the thousands upon thousands like that child know there is hope for a better world. There is hope for a better tomorrow. St. George, you've got to give them hope. If we can win here in St. George, then we can win in Utah. And if we can win in Utah, we can win in this nation. And we can turn this checkerboard nation into a country where we no longer leave a single one of our brothers or our sisters behind, no matter where they live or who they love. Thank you very much.